What's up? This is Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff. On today's show, it's Christmas Eve. I kind of hope you're not listening or watching to this, but you might be because you have to go to work, so thank you. UNLV football was a mess last night. The Raiders have a massive game this weekend, and the Golden Knights annihilated the Sharks. That's not a real NHL team. Technically Correct is sponsored by Runway 27. Look at my shirt. See, I'll wear a shirt if you send me a shirt. A travel-themed coffee company started by my cousin and his wife in San Diego. If you're looking for a gift for the jet-setting coffee lover in your life, check out their selection of fair trade single-origin beans at runway27coffee.com. You can also check them out at runway27_coffee on TikTok and Instagram. Their coffees are roasted in small batches so that they arrive at your door at peak freshness, and all coffees fly free. That means ship. By the way, is it my cousin if it's my wife's cousin? Do you marry into cousins? I don't know how that works. But Runway 27 Coffee, thank you for sponsoring the show today. Again, check them out at runway27coffee.com. Here we go. UNLV lost to Ohio in the Frisco Bowl yesterday, 17-10. And that didn't sound that bad, but it felt a lot worse watching that. Like, you had in this game, there was a drive where Anthony Calandria fumbled on his own. He's running, doesn't get touched, slips and fumbles. Now, the ground caused the fumble, so it wasn't actually a fumble and they kept the ball. But later on the drive, he did lose a fumble in the pocket and Ohio recovered it. That was bad. He also threw a pretty brutal interception at the end of the first half that cost them a field goal attempt, maybe more if they had been able to score, but at the very least a field goal attempt. We had a play in the fourth quarter, 3rd and goal from the 1, and the tight end tackles the running back coming across the formation, and they just run into each other. They got a punt block the very first drive of the game. The punt was blocked, had a touchdown called back for an ineligible man downfield. Granted, that was more Calandria's fault than the lineman's fault. Had a big 3rd down drop in that game as well that would have set UNLV up inside the 10. Like, it was just bad football. Like, UNLV just genuinely played a bad football game. They had embarrassing plays throughout the course of this, right? And then on top of that, like, you look at the offense, which had been so good this year, 4.8 yards per play, 2nd worst mark of the season. So only twice this year they were held under 5 yards per play. This was one of them. They didn't score in the first half, first time that's happened all season, and they had 10 points in the game. Worst of the season. UNLV offense was awful, right? The offensive line got beat up. There was not a lot of running room, even when the tight end wasn't running into the running back. There wasn't a lot of running room. Like, it was not a well-played offensive game for UNLV, probably the worst of the season. The defense was better. I wouldn't say good. They still gave up over 6 yards per play. They got fortunate with some Ohio sloppiness that kept their score at 17 when it could have been much higher. But it was a bad bowl performance. But I think that the real question is, like, does that affect the season at all to you? Like, they end up at 10-4. You end the season with sort of a bad, discouraging bowl loss. But I don't think this bowl game should matter that much to the season. Like, it's a bonus. It's a nice win. Like, when you look back at the year, are you going to be worried about the bowl game? I think if you look back at the year, you're either, oh my God, it's another 10-win season, like, that's great, or it's, they really blew it against Boise State again. I think those are really the two things you're going to either look back at, either optimistically or pessimistically, about this season. I don't think you'll look back and think much about this loss. It's similar. It's worse, but it's similar to the Barry Odom first year when they lost to Kansas in the bowl game, right? Kansas was a Power 5 team, and they were pretty good that year, right? That was a more understandable loss. This one, I mean, they should have beaten Ohio. They were projected to beat Ohio and just didn't do it. Now, looking to the future, I do think there is a little bit of worry here. And this is the pessimistic side coming out of that bowl game. UNLV got shut down by a team that isn't all that good, right? Ohio, yes, they went 8-4, but they were 84th in SP plus entering the game. They were not like this good team or a special team or anything like that. And specifically, the offense getting shut down in this game, because why is there excitement already going into next season for UNLV football? Dan Mullen's back. Anthony Calandria is back, right? You're getting the coach and the quarterback to return from a group of 5 team that was good, that won 10 games, across the country, group of 5 teams that have good seasons are losing their coaches and losing their quarterbacks. It's just what happens. And UNLV is not, unless something happens here at the end of December or January when the transfer portal actually opens. But the excitement is because those two are back, and UNLV just had a really good offensive season. But if you look at this season for UNLV and sort of break it down by opponent defense, they played 7 teams that ranked in the top 70 of SP+, and they played 7 games against teams outside the top 70. The games against teams outside the top 70 of SP+ on defense, we're just looking at defense, they were 7-0. They beat up the teams that were bad defensively. The teams that were in the top 70, they went 3-4, right? And Boise State is the team they played twice that was in there. But they went 3-4 in those games. Ohio is one of those teams. Important note, they didn't play a single team in the top 50 of SP plus defense this year. So they did not play a good defense the entire season. The entire year. They only played like 7 defenses that were average, maybe even below average, right? There's not 140 teams in college football. So they didn't play. I'm not talking about, they played a couple of teams that were 21st in defense SP+. No. All of these teams were between 50 and 70, and they only went 3-4. And some of the offensive struggles, Wyoming was the only other game where they had a worse yards per play. They were a top 70 defense. The fewest points they scored were against the top 70 defenses, right? The schedule is probably just as easy next year. We'll see how good some of these remaining Mountain West teams are. Does Northern Illinois or UTEP get any good next year? The non-conference, how does North Texas hold up? Right, there's a lot of questions, but the schedule looks easy, and they're probably not going to play that many good defenses. But I do think it's fair to question, like, this UNLV offense, how good was it this year? Was it just simply good enough to crush the bottom 60 defenses in the country? And if they had any resistance, it was actually kind of bad. That, I think, is the pessimistic way after this bowl game, but that's actually the accumulation of the entire season and sort of what they did against semi-competent defenses across the year. Now, on this bowl game, a couple other things. First off, did the ESPN broadcast just completely ignore Ohio's former head coach getting fired? Because Ohio's former head coach, Brian Smith, got fired this month. It happened this month. This is the first game they've played since then. And he got fired specifically because he was sleeping with a student at Ohio. He's fighting it, and his attorney saying there was nothing in their bylaws. There's no policy that says he couldn't do that. So he's fighting it. But they fired the coach because he was banging a student, and the ESPN broadcast just didn't mention it the entire game. I mean, we heard about interim head coach all the time, and we just do not mention why they have an interim head coach. It's not like they've got an interim because the head coach got poached by a bigger job. No, he slept with a student and the university fired him. And the ESPN just didn't mention it. Why would you not mention that? I don't understand. Also, that didn't look like a bowl game at all. I mean, the teams didn't play well, but they played this bowl game at the Dallas Cowboys practice facility in Frisco, Texas. And it's a arena? Stadium's not the right word, right? Like, it's an arena. There's no seats behind the end zone. It's just walls, right? On extra points, if they tried to show a behind the end zone cam, it didn't work because there's a wall just right behind the end zone. So it's a bad angle. You can't even see the full uprights. And the field, there's nothing. The Cowboys logo is at midfield. The end zones say Cowboys. They had to superimpose the Scooters Coffee logo onto the field. Like, they even had the lines for soccer. Like, this looked like a high school football place. Like, it looked like UNLV played a bowl game at a high school football field. Like, UNLV won 10 games this year, and the reward was, all right, go play in a practice facility. That just didn't feel at all like a real bowl game or a real college football game. Like that, come on now. That could not have been the actual answer. Last thing on this, because this is my favorite thing to point out. I've just grown into this being like the number one thing I yell about. Dan Mullen had a pretty brutal game management performance. First instance was a 4th and 9 at the Ohio 47 in the first half. He didn't go for it. It was not a 4th and 1. I can understand it, but it's a bowl game and you're across midfield and you punt. They got 31 yards of field position on the punt. Ohio went down and scored on that ensuing drive. Like, just go for it. Like, what are we doing here? He also, in the fourth quarter, burned a timeout on offense in the final 5 minutes, which meant had he not burned that, Ohio would have had to have gotten one more first down to run the clock out on the next drive. Why are you taking a timeout on offense? I know it was 4th and goal, but if you're going to win the game, you're going to need that timeout back. And then in that final sequence, when Ohio gets the ball back, they got it back before the 2-minute warning. Mullen called a timeout with 2 minutes and 1 second on the clock, which college football now has a 2-minute warning or a 2-minute timeout. And here's the thing, though. You don't want to call your timeout with 2:01 on the clock because everybody then knows after the next play, the clock is going to stop. Which means, as an offense, I can now run any play that I want. I can run any passing play that I want to run. Whereas, if you call that timeout, say with 2:09, or if you save it until after the 2-minute warning, then if your opponent throws the ball, they're risking the incompletion and stopping the clock without you burning a timeout. Terrible management. If a coach calls a timeout with 2:01 or really with 2:05 or less, it's a bad timeout because that allows the opponent to throw the ball without any punishment if it's incomplete. And for some reason, Dan Mullen did that. Now, Ohio ran the ball on that play for 8 yards. So they didn't take advantage of it, but they also, I think, felt they were just going to run the ball down UNLV's throat to finish that game off anyway. But that's just, unless Dan Mullen was trying to trick them into throwing it, unless he was trying to like 4D chess this and say, hey, we can't stop the run, we need them to throw it, maybe it'll be an interception. Unless that's what he was going for, that's just a bad understanding of what to do around the 2-minute warning with your timeouts because you're opening up your opponent's playbook when you don't need to. Like, just save it until after the 2-minute warning. Or he actually could have taken it before. They let the clock go down. He could have taken it before and just didn't. So a pretty bad game management performance by Dan Mullen as well. The offense was the bigger concern, but you had some problems with the clock management, game management from Mullen as well. So UNLV loses their bowl game to Ohio. Again, it's all a bonus. I don't think you should be too upset by what happened in the bowl game, but if you are projecting forward, there might be some questions as to actually how good this team is. But Technically Correct is sponsored by Runway 27, a travel-themed coffee company started by my cousin and his wife in San Diego. If you're looking for a gift for the jet-setting coffee lover in your life, check out their selection of fair trade, single-origin beans at runway27coffee.com. You can also check them out at runway27_coffee on TikTok and Instagram. Their coffees are roasted in small batches so that they arrive at your door at peak freshness, and all coffees fly free. So shout out to Runway 27 Coffee for sponsoring the show. If you want some coffee, order it. I know it's Christmas Eve now, but order it. They'll get it to you. Or if you want to send it to somebody, it's a good place to go. Runway27coffee.com. Coming up next, it's Bischoff's Briefs. Before we get into Bischoff's Briefs, a show note, there will not be a Technically Correct tomorrow or on Friday. This is the last one of the week. so enjoy it. The Raiders and Giants play on Sunday, biggest game of the year for the Raiders. Loss puts them into the number 1 pick for the NFL draft headed into week 18, headed into the final game of the season. So a massive game. You got to let Jackson Dart go wild. Don't knock him out with a concussion. But I wanted to point out one thing, because I keep seeing this comment, because I have gone full born, you need to lose this game, you need to full tank, fire Pete Carroll, and allow everything to go poorly in this game, because losing is extremely important for the Raiders as a franchise. But I've seen a lot of people say that losing this game doesn't matter because the Giants aren't going to draft a quarterback, so the Raiders don't have to lose. Now, a couple of things. First off, a Raiders win could drop them down to the 4th pick going into week 18, right? If the other 3 and 12 teams lose, the Raiders will fall a little bit further in the draft order. This is not a game or a situation where the loser gets the 1st pick and the winner gets the 2nd pick. That is not what's guaranteed to happen. That might happen. These other teams, the Browns or whatever, they might win a game, and it does work out that way. But if these other teams lose and you win this game, you're picking 4th if it happens in week 18 as well. So it's not a case of loser gets the 2nd pick, which I think a lot of people are thinking for some reason. The other part of this is that, the Giants have Jackson Dart. They have a quarterback, so they're not going to draft a quarterback at number 1. So again, it doesn't matter if the Raiders lose this game, because the team ahead of them won't take a quarterback, and Mendoza or Dante Moore will just fall to them. The Giants picking at 1 does not mean a quarterback's not getting drafted 1st overall. Trades are allowed to happen in the NFL. And I don't know if the Giants are going to love any non-quarterback prospect at 1 enough to take them, but there is an absolute chance that the Giants, if they're picking 1st overall, trade down and somebody else comes up to take a quarterback. And if the Raiders are just hypothetically, let's say, sitting there at 3, and if they're thinking, the Giants won't draft a quarterback, so we're going to get one of Mendoza or more at 3, we're in a great spot. And then all of a sudden somebody trades up to 1, and now quarterback goes 1, quarterback goes 2, and you're at 3 like, oh, shit, somebody else took the quarterbacks? Like, trades are allowed. Other teams are allowed to come up. And then what that means is that if the Raiders win this game and they're not picking 1st or 2nd in the draft, if they want to guarantee they can get a quarterback, they would be the team that would have to trade up. And now all of a sudden you're giving up a future asset to go up. It might, from 3 to 1, it might even be a future 1st just to go up those 2 spots. It is the 1st overall pick. So if all of a sudden you're in a position where to get Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore, you've got to trade a 1st-round pick, that's terrible, because you need more than just the quarterback. So it's very important. It's very important the Raiders lose to the New York Giants. Like, it is the health of the franchise is in such a fragile state that getting the number 1 pick is a legitimate way to sort of fix this. And not having it could be terrible. They could still draft a quarterback at 3, 4, or 5, but that also means that other teams say that quarterback's not worthy of the number 1 pick, which might mean that quarterback is bad. It's possible, but you want to get the number 1 pick. It makes everything a lot easier. We're going to get into some Golden Knights. They embarrassed the Sharks yesterday. That's one of the biggest blowouts you're going to see in hockey. But I looked this up last night because it almost happened. The Golden Knights have never outscored UNLV football when they have played on the same day. We were close last night. UNLV scored a 4th down touchdown in the 4th quarter to get from 3 points to 10 points. If they get stuffed there, they didn't get the ball back. They're at 3, and the Golden Knights were they were over 3 at the time. They didn't just finish over 3. The Golden Knights at 5 in the 1st period. So we were very close. But because I did look this up, we have had a few simultaneous game days between UNLV football and the Golden Knights. One time, we've had the teams finish tied. On November 3rd of 2018, UNLV lost to Fresno State 48-3, and the Golden Knights beat the Carolina Hurricanes 3-0. So one time we've had a tie. We have never had the Golden Knights outscore UNLV. Also in hockey, Pierre LeBrun reported that NHL teams have reached out to Marc-Andre Fleury to see if he wants to play again. Now, Marc-Andre Fleury is 41 years old. Marc-Andre Fleury had a retirement. I don't know if you missed it or not, but he retired last year. It's kind of a big deal. but teams have reached out, see if he wants to play. He played in 26 games last year, and his numbers, .899 save percentage and negative 0.9 goals saved above average. So he wasn't bad, slightly below average goaltender last year. Is he going to be better than that? Probably not, but you probably get some level of competency out of Marc-Andre Fleury if you actually signed him. But the scenario that would be the absolute funniest is Greg Wyshynski actually is the one who tweeted it out. The Oilers. The Oilers with their goaltending problems, they make a trade, they have a big injury now. With their goaltending issues, trading for Marc-Andre Fleury and then having to play him in, we'll just say playoff games, is the funniest scenario. And specifically for this market, if Marc-Andre Fleury knocked the Golden Knights out of the playoffs, I don't know if fans would be happy or not, because this fan base loves Marc-Andre Fleury. But that would be one of the funniest things that could happen to the Golden Knights is you get beat, and you get beat by Marc-Andre Fleury and the Edmonton Oilers. All right, that has been Bischoff's Briefs. Coming up next, we're going to get into the Golden Knights after they demolish the San Jose Sharks. Before we get into the Golden Knights, I have more UNLV basketball tickets. So Arnold, listener of the show, has UNLV basketball tickets. He's not going to their game on Monday against La Sierra. Gave those away. But Cody, who also listens to the show, told me that he's got tickets, that he is not going to go to that game against La Sierra. So if you want some UNLV basketball tickets, I'm not even going to make you answer a question today. Just email me UNLV basketball, and you'll win a pair of tickets to their game on Monday against La Sierra. So if you want to get some free UNLV basketball tickets, I got you. We got them right here. We'll give them away to you. I'm a little concerned that there might be more people trying to give away their tickets to that game than actually get them. But thanks to Arnold, thanks to Cody, we've had some tickets to give away to some fans. So just email me. It's technicallycorrectvegas@gmail.com. Just email me something that says about UNLV basketball tickets, and we'll get you those tickets. Now, the Golden Knights, they beat the Sharks, and they annihilated the Sharks. I had asked after the last two games, no Jack Eichel, no Shea Theodore, how good is this team without those two players? It's your best forward, it's your best defenseman. You got crushed by the Sharks and the Oilers back-to-back. And, are they even better than San Jose without those two? Because if you're not better than San Jose, or if you're just as good as San Jose, you could fall out of a playoff spot in the near future because you don't have Theodore and you don't have Eichel for an extended period of time. And then the Golden Knights just crushed them. I mean, just the first period was unbelievable. The score was 5-0, and that was a legitimate score. Like a lot of times in hockey, the score doesn't reflect how the play went, right? The score doesn't reflect how close or how far apart the two teams were. There will be times where first period looks like last night, and it's 1-0 instead of 5-0. Scoring chances were 17-2. Shot attempts were 26-7. 13 different Golden Knights had a point in the first period last night. The Sharks put up some shots and scoring chances in the second and third when they're down by 100. It's not really relevant. So the total game stats don't look quite as funny. But that first period was just, one of the biggest beatdowns you're going to see. It was worse than what the Oilers did to the Golden Knights in the previous game. It was embarrassing. Halfway through the game, even into the second period, the Sharks had 0.35 expected goals. That is hilariously low to be halfway through a game and at 0.35 expected goals. At the time, 4 different Golden Knights had an individual expected goals higher than that. Incredible work. The Golden Knights absolutely annihilated them and sort of put some, I don't want to say statement, but sort of put out there hey, we're not complete crap without Eichel and Theodore. We can still beat the San Jose Sharks, which should sort of rest any concern about how bad these next couple of weeks could be without Eichel and without Theodore. They should still be able to get some points, still be able to beat some of the bad teams. Now, how's it going to look against Colorado after Christmas? I don't know, but they should be fine against some of the worst teams on the schedule. Also, I enjoyed this stat because I think this is a very good Sharks are bad stat, and Golden Knights dominate the Sharks stat. Sinbin tweeted this out. Percentage of goals scored this season that were against the Sharks. Colton Sissons has scored both of his goals against the Sharks. Riley Smith has scored 2 of his 5 goals. Mitch Marner has scored 3 of his 9. Brett Howden, 2 of his 6. And Hertl, 3 of his 15. So you've got a handful of players that just have a significant chunk of their goals that have only happened in games against the Sharks. Because, by the way, how are the Sharks anywhere close to a wild card spot? I'm not going to say that I've watched them play any other game besides when they play the Golden Knights, but they're horrible. Like, yeah, they went to overtime one time against the Golden Knights, but they went to overtime because the goalie gave away 2 goals. Like, they're horrendous. They're a horrible team, and somehow they're not actually, like, out of a playoff race. They could catch, Utah or LA or so. Like, yeah, what's happening there? Now, probably more important than the actual game itself is the injury updates, because Bruce Cassidy, before the game, kind of gave us some insight into Golden Knights' injury situation. And I hate to give credit to Ken Bulke, but asked a question in a fairly clever way, because he asked how the injuries would affect players' chances of going to the Olympics. Something that doesn't happen usually is, hey, the Olympics are coming up. Your player is going to be available then? And Cassidy gave a little bit clearer of a timeline. So first off, on Jack Eichel, he again said Eichel's day-to-day, and he doesn't really see this injury preventing Eichel from playing in the Olympics. So that's about as optimistic and about as good of a timeline as we've heard about a player that's injured is, hey, he could play in the Olympics. Carlson, he sounded much, much less optimistic. He did technically say that Carlson could be back for the Olympics, but it sounded pessimistic. It sounded like he does not think Carlson will be back and playing for the Golden Knights before the Olympics. He also kind of evaded the question about Adin Hill, because he turned it into not talking about Adin Hill's injury and talking more about, well, Canada might not take him on the Olympic roster simply because he hasn't played, and you can't evaluate a player that's not playing. So he didn't really mention Adin Hill's injury. So Carlson and Adin Hill still seem pretty pessimistic. He also said Theodore should be good to go for the Olympics as well. So the timeline there, the last Golden Knights game before the Olympic break is February 5th. So that's kind of what we're looking at, very, very early February. And if we're just saying Olympics or no Olympics, you would think Eichel and Theodore would be back at the very beginning of February, if not earlier, if they're going to be ready to go for the Olympics. First game back after the Olympic break is February 25th, by the way. So if guys aren't back in time for the Olympics, they're out all the way through February 25th. So a little more optimistic, I think, on Eichel and Theodore, and when they could be back, not so much on Carlson and Hill, based on the way Cassidy talked about those yesterday. But one thing on the Olympics and injured players, if it were me, if I was in the position of I am on the Olympic roster or will be on the Olympic roster, and I've got some sort of injury, right? Which is what Jack Eichel's in and Theodore's in and Carlson's in. I'm prioritizing the Olympics over the next month, 6 weeks, whatever it is, of NHL hockey. Like, if I could come back and play at 90% for the Golden Knights before the Olympic break, I don't think I'm doing it. Right? If I'm 100%, yeah, I'm coming back to play. But if I'm not 100%, if I'm coming back and it's like, oh, I'm at 90%, and in theory I could play, I don't think I'm doing it. Like, I don't want to come back and risk my chances at playing in the Olympics because I might be hurt for 6 games at the end of January. Like, to me, I would be prioritizing the Olympics. And like, if I'm Eichel, I'm not sitting here saying, how do I get back now or quickly for the Golden Knights? I'm saying, what do I need to do to be ready to go February 10th or whenever that first game for the U.S. is going to be? That would be my priority. And then, okay, cool. I played in the Olympics and then I come back and we'll play. It's a normal season after that. But I would be prioritizing the Olympics. That's how I would view it. I don't know if every other player views it that way. Usually when people talk about playing for their national team, they do seem to be like, oh no, this is what matters. And so I think that's the case. But like, that would be my thought is, hey, I want to play in the Olympics. So sorry, I'm not coming back for a February 5th game right before the Olympic break if I'm not at 100%. We'll see what actually happens here, but that's would be me if I was a player. Now, One other thing from the Golden Knights game last night that I thought was kind of funny. Bruce Cassidy, again, before the game, Cassidy got asked about their slow starts because the Golden Knights have gotten off to bad starts in a lot of games. Bruce Cassidy has talked about it and complained about it a lot, that they can't fix it. And before the game, I thought he gave a fascinating answer, some good insight to it. And he basically said that he thinks part of their slow starts, part of the reason they're getting off to slow starts is how the Golden Knights are trying to enter the zone early in the game. The phrase he specifically used was there's either space in front of or behind the defenseman. And he thinks that early in games, guys are playing better or maybe safer, and that the defensemen have good gaps, and there's no space in front of them, that the space is behind the defenseman early in the games, which means you got to play to the space. They should be dumping the puck into the zone and going and getting it, right? They should not be trying to skate through the defenseman, because if the defensemen are backed off and the space is in front of the defenseman, then you can just skate into the offensive zone. But if they're tight to you, you're going to have to dump it in to get the puck into the offensive zone. So Cassidy was basically saying, he used the phrase direct and safe early on, was basically saying, we need to dump the puck in, dump and chase early in the games. We do not need to try to skate the puck in because when you try to skate the puck in, you're more likely to turn it over in the neutral zone and give up a transition chance going the other way. So that was Cassidy, part of his theory as to why they're off to slow starts and what they need to do differently. The funny thing is the Golden Knights got off to a great start against the Sharks last night, and it's not because they dumped the puck in. It's actually because they skated or passed the puck in. Their first 4 zone entries of the game last night. First one, they skated the puck in and got a shot on goal. Second one, they dumped it in. What Cassidy was saying they need to do, they turned the puck over. Third one, they passed the puck in and Mark Stone whiffed. And then the fourth one, they had a 2-on-1, so they skated it in and scored a goal. Basically, the only dump in early in the game resulted in a turnover. The 2 skate in chances and the 1 pass in resulted in chances and a goal. And that part of hockey is like an interesting strategy because it is significantly better to skate the puck in. It much better than dumping it in, right? Because if you dump the puck in, you're giving up possession of the puck. You're just throwing the puck behind their net, and then you've got to go get it. Usually their defensemen are going to get to the puck before you, and you're just hoping to win the board battle behind the net, and then, hey, you have offensive zone possession. But you are voluntarily losing control of the puck. It's kind of like punting in football. You're electing to just give the other team possession. But it's safe because if you dump it in and you don't get the puck, they have the puck, but they're now behind their own net. And you should be in a good structure. Guys shouldn't be out of position that you're not going to give up a good chance the other way in a good pass or two. Whereas if you're trying to skate the puck in or pass it in and you turn it over, that turnover is happening in the neutral zone. The guy who lost the puck is probably out of position and you're giving up a 3-on-2 or worse going the other way, right? I always find that fascinating because it is better. If you're the better team, generally speaking, you should be skating the puck into the zone. Like, if you're Connor McDavid, you should be skating the puck into the zone. And for the Golden Knights, if you're Jack Eichel or Mitch Marner, you should be skating it in because against most opponents, you should be better. And so I find that sort of an interesting strategy because I always feel like if you're going to be the dump and chase team, you're kind of saying you're worse than your opponent. You're kind of saying, hey, we're not as good at hockey. We're just going to try to go out physical you on the boards and hope that that works. So I kind of felt like Cassidy saying that was at least early in the game. He wants the safe approach because maybe they aren't good enough to do it on a regular basis. They're not good enough to skate through or pass through people on a regular basis. A little bit of what I thought Cassidy said yesterday. Hey, we're not good enough to do that. Don't do that. Dump the puck in. And they haven't been dumping it in as much as Bruce Cassidy likes. But this has been Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff on Christmas Eve. Again, shout out to Runway 27 Coffee for sponsoring the show today. Check them out at runway27coffee.com. I hope you all have a good Christmas. I will be back on Monday of next week after the Golden Knights play the Avalanche, but also after the Raiders potentially get to the number one pick in the NFL draft or blow it with a win. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good weekend.